Hey guys, welcome back to more AFK Arena. In today's video, they have put on their social media the broad outline of the abilities of both Geralt and Yennefer. So keen to get into these ones. Both of them sound like they could have really strong viability depending on what the actual numbers and the exact system of these abilities and how they work. We'll have to wait and see, but I'm very hopeful that both of these units can be very, very strong in the game, depending on how the actual numbers fall. But that is going to be Geralt. Really, honestly, I love these designs. I think it's really wicked. And then we do have the Yennefer once again. Now, Yennefer is going to be a intellect-based mage, and Geralt is a bit of an entendre with the agility-based warrior, which I actually think really suits the style of him. I think this is like the down to the T what he probably should have been. So I think they've done well with that. So let's get into their abilities. We'll start off with Geralt and go through his, and then just summarize where I think, like which abilities I think are going to be really the place where he can shine, and then we'll go through Yennefer. So first off, potion buff. This is the ultimate skill. When adrenaline/energy is full, he drinks a potion to buff himself, temporarily boosting his crit damage, amplification, and dodge. I really like this. You're getting both damage and mitigation, which is really nice. During this time, while his adrenaline is above a certain percentage, he is immune to control effects from enemies. When he is under the effects of the potion, he loses adrenaline points per second. Makes me think of like Screg, when Screg mounts up and then loses points. When he doesn't have enough adrenaline left, he takes some white honey to remove the buff, healing part of his max health and dispelling most debuffs. So it's really, really cool the way this works. It's like he goes into like sort of like a berserker type mode, we'll call it, and then once it ends, I think it reminds me of like Rigby, one of Rigby's skills. Like when it ends, he's then going to heal himself up. So really cool. Keen to see numbers, multipliers, and all that sort of stuff. But honestly, not a bad ability. Next up, Whirl performs a fast spin to damage enemies within range multiple times. He gains additional adrenaline points per enemy hit. When Yennefer is an ally, his adrenaline recovery rate increases. So, you know, like we all thought that they were going to have that little synergy between them. They both have a synergistic ability. I don't think it's like massively broken, but it's a nice little synergy that they do have together. Next up, we have Rend. Performs a forward-facing heavy slash to enemies within range, dealing damage that ignores enemy defense. Damage scales with his adrenaline value. If Graveborn or Hypergene enemies are within the skill range, he will attack with his Silver Sword, additionally reducing their energy. While using the Silver Sword, he is immune to control effects. So he has the immune to control up the top with his ultimate, and then he also has it with this, with the condition of Graveborn and Hypergene. I like the way they did that throw in. Like, it's something that may not make the most sense in pure game balance of like just, you know, like especially nailing out Graveborn in it. But I love it when they do things that are based around the sort of lore of a character, even if it's not like the general, like, you know, this is the most balanced thing. I think it's really cool that they added that in. Next up, we have Witch's Signs. He uses different Witch's Signs during battle. Eden, let's call it that. Gerald places a magical trap at the start of the battle, which lasts for several seconds. Enemies within the trap have their dodge and haste reduced. Now, this is going to heavily depend how much these numbers are. Those, you know, it could be okay. Not too stressed on that one. Not like the most broken thing. Quen. When taking damage, this is a big one. When taking damage above a certain percentage of his max health, he quickly casts Quen to temporarily block all attacks, then grants a shield for several seconds. And then the final one is he casts Ard, A-A-R-D, Ard, in front of him to damage and knock down enemies within range. So this little ability here, Witch Signs, I'm really keen to see how it works, internal cooldowns of abilities and stuff like that. So when we've got this one where he takes damage, a certain percentage damage, he's gonna quickly cast Quen and block all attacks. Now, if it negates the big damage on top of that, really nice. Keen to see how long he blocks all attacks for. That's another interesting thing. And then what type of shield it is. So that Quen ability could be really, really nice. What's the cooldown on it? These are all things that I think are very key to his kit. hit in that Quen. And then the other one's going to be nice depending on how often he uses it and also how big the range is and how long the knockdown is, because it could provide him with some really decent CC. So this ability is a really interesting one that I'm keen to see how it actually plays when we get him. Then we have his signature item. Increases the attack range of Whirl and Rend. Every time he uses Rend, he increases his normal attack and Whirl damage for several seconds, which can be stacked up to a certain amount of time. So have to see that. We'll have to see how low the cooldowns are on these. Maybe it's kind of like Soros, where he goes from one to the other, one to the other, one to the other. I don't exactly know. We'll have to wait and see how quick he uses them in succession to be able to be stacking this kind of buff. Or if he just needs like insane haste ratings to do it properly. And then Sign Mastery upgrades the effects of the 3 signs in this one, and which, like I said, these I feel like are going to be very key to his viability. So buffing them is going to be fantastic. I'm really keen to see in what way they buff them. But like I said, when you've got this sort of like especially when we look to like campaign and stuff like that, when we look at endgame pushing, high deficits, you really want immunities and stuff like that. So having this ability to get negate damage when it's above a certain percentage and have that invincibility type section, I don't know, like I feel like it's going to be block all attacks. I don't know if it's like for a period of time, whatever, but those are getting buffed as well. So I think he can definitely have some viability because he's also got some control on top of that. Also, he has some CC immunity, which can be handy as well. Not as important in the high deficits. It's more like having that immunity, bringing some big damage. I don't think his damage at high deficits sounds like it's going to be crazy. Ignore defense, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see damage numbers. But in general, I think he has a chance to be quite viable based on this Witcher Sign's ability. So that is Geralt. Now, let's move on into Yennefer and take a look. Like I said, she is an intellect-based mage. Let's get into it. So her ultimate ability dives into the most crowded area of enemies and slams into the ground, dealing damage to enemies within the radius and imprisoning them for several seconds. After which Yennefer teleports to her original location. While the skill is active, she is invulnerable. So reminds me of Zafrael. Zafrael obviously doesn't do it with an ultimate. He does it with a passive. But the problem with Zafrael is he can often die when he jumps in. But while this ability is happening, she's invulnerable. So I think that's a really nice way to make it actually a valuable ability. But there's more synergies with it when we look at the rest of her abilities. But basically, jump into the enemies. What does it say? Imprison them for several seconds. I'm assuming that's a hard CC. And then she's like, you can't hit her. So I like this ability. I think it's a really strong ultimate. Has a lot to do with the rest of her kit as well, which we'll get into. So Lilac and Gooseberries. Passive. Yennefer enchants enemies within a given range around her for several seconds, during which they will start attacking each other with normal attacks. Nice little charm. If Geralt is an ally, he inflicts additional damage to the enchanted enemies. So this is an interesting one because it sounds like it has synergy with her ultimate in that like enemies near her get enchanted, but the problem is this one says it imprisons them anyway. So I feel like you're overlapping that CC that could have happened with this. So I'm not too sure exactly how this works, whether it's like whether it has a cooldown or like this ability seems really nice, but once again, it's one of those ones we need to get an exact description and see how it plays before we know. But honestly, I'm excited to see how this one works. Next up, we have Sorceress's Wrath. Yennefer casts Frost and Thunder. Yennefer casts Frost and Thunder magic in turn. Frost magic. It feels like this might like replace a basic attack. That's what it sounds like. She's just like cycling through them, and then she'll use her other abilities. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Frost magic channels a line of ice shards and ice storm, dealing multiple hits to enemies in front. Each hit causing damage and knocking them back while stunning them briefly. Then we got Thunder Magic. Summons thunder on enemies in front, dealing damage and stunning them for several seconds. I don't think it can be actually, like I said, just cycling through them instead of normal attacks, because otherwise she'd pretty much, by the sounds of this, have 100% uptime on stuns, which sounds broken. But honestly, this ability, sick. Free CC. Not too bad. Happy with that ability. Her kit at the moment, sounding really solid in my opinion. CC with the imprisoning on the Ultimate, we got mind control on the second ability, and then we got more stuns on the third ability. Looking pretty solid. Then we have magic barrier. Creates a magical barrier at the start of battle, reducing the damage allied heroes take on the allied side. Reducing the damage allied heroes take on allied. Wait, I think this is a typo. Creates a magical barrier at the start of the battle, reducing the damage allied heroes take on the allied side from enemies. There's an extra take in there. I think that's what it is. From enemies on the enemy side of the battlefield. So let me TLDR that. That typo got me confused. Probably not a typo. I just suck at reading. But if allies are on the allied side. Wait, this is inverse in the camera. Okay, if allies are on the allied side and enemies are on the enemy side, your allies are going to take less damage from those enemies. If the enemies are on your allies side, I think you don't get it. And if your allies are on their side, you don't get it. They've got to be on opposite sides. I believe that is the way it works from my rating. When upgraded, the magical barrier can knock enemies back into their side of the battlefield. So this is pretty cool. It sounds like with the skill ups, this might be an engraving type feature. This sounds like a 60 engraving where if enemies come into your side, they get knocked back, which is really cool. Could have some play depending on the interactions and how it works with lunges. So we'll have to wait and see. Next up, aligned defense. This is her signature item. Increases the damage reduction of magic barrier and energy recovery for allied heroes within when they suffer damage. When upgraded, magic barrier duration is suspended when no enemies are within it. So basically, I'll try and explain what I think this means is that allies inside it, when they take damage, they gain extra energy, which is nice, or energy recovery. So their rank might go up. It's going to reduce the damage they take further inside that barrier. I'm definitely keen to see what numbers, what percentage reduction, because often we know with heroes like a star, with heroes like, who else have we got? The Lightbearer chick that I'm really enjoying at the moment in my Lightbearer's account, Sonya. Like, they have high mitigation, you know, like 70%, 50% mitigation. But when you're at high deficits, everything's getting one shot anyway. So I'm keen to see how much mitigation this is. I think she's going to sound like a pretty decent PvP unit, in my opinion, as well. But we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But yeah, you're getting increased damage reduction, increased energy recovery when allies are hit. And when upgraded, magic barrier duration is suspended when no enemies are within, meaning if there's no enemies in it, the countdown of the duration of it gets halted, so it could actually be there all battle if enemies don't enter it. Also, keeping in mind when enemies enter it, they're going to get knocked onto their side of the battlefield. Not sure on the cooldown, all that stuff. We'll have to wait and see. But all sounding fairly synergistic in this kit. I'm really liking the look of Yennefer at the moment. When Yennefer is in the back line, this is her furniture. When Yennefer is in the back line of the allied side, it greatly increases the range of frost magic. When upgraded, Yennefer can teleport herself and the enemy to their respective back lines when she receives melee damage. So this would be interesting. I'd be interested to see how this works with something like a Kren. Out of curiosity, like if you put her in the front row, and she gets a melee attack and instantly she goes to the back row, the enemy goes to their back row, pops a bomb, something like that. That's just the basic synergy that I think of. But I'm keen to see how this works and what little play arounds you can do. But she sounds incredibly disruptive. I really like Yennefer. I honestly, I'm more excited about Yennefer than Geralt at this time, just based on this. But who knows once we actually see the abilities and stuff like that. I just think her kit seems super nice. And like I said, for Geralt, it's going to be about these Witcher signs. I'm definitely keen to see how they work. But let me know what you guys think. We don't know when they're dropping yet. Hopefully on the test server pretty soon, but we'll have to wait and see. But honestly, I'm really excited to see how these guys play. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.